On December 20, 1968, a young couple went out on their first date in a car. They wanted privacy, so they drove towards Lake Hormone in California. 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen and 17-year-old David Faraday were both unaware that a stranger was following them in another car. They had just stopped near Lake Harmon when a stranger's vehicle arrived. The men sitting in the car asked David and Betty to get out. When they refused, the men fired a shot at the rear wheel of their car to scare them. Suddenly filled with fear, David and Betty immediately ran away from the car, at which point the men shot both of them. David was hit in the head and Betty was struck by 5 bullets in the waist. After this incident, the person immediately fled the scene. This was the heart-wrenching event that sparked a search for an infamous serial killer. Yes, we are talking about the Zodiac Killer. Welcome to the videos of Unknown Mysteries. Viewers, the Zodiac Killer is one of the scariest serial killers of the 20th century. Between 1960 and 1970, he terrorized San Francisco with his horrifying attacks. He used to send letters to newspapers and police, proudly confessing his murders, and he would send puzzles for them to solve. After committing his first 2 murders, he remained silent for 6 months but then reappeared in another murder case. On July 4, 1969, it was Independence Day in the United States. 18-year-old Darlene and 16-year-old Mike Magoo went out to get fireworks. They noticed that a stranger's car was following them. To evade the car, they turned into the parking lot of Blue Rock Springs Park. However, the stranger followed them into the parking lot. First, he parked his car next to theirs. But after a few seconds, he reversed the car and drove away. Seeing this, Darlene and Mike took a breath of relief, but this relief was only momentary. The stranger's car parked again, blocking the path of their car. A man emerged from the vehicle, holding a powerful flashlight, which he shone in their faces. Initially, they thought he might be a police officer. But at that moment, the man opened fire on both of them and immediately fled in his car. Darlene died on the spot, but Mike survived with his injuries. After a while, the 3 children present nearby called the police. Mitchell had seen the face of the murderer, with the help of which the police later had a sketch made of the murderer. The most surprising aspect of this incident was that on the same day, at 12:40 p.m., a person called the Vallejo Police Department from a phone booth. However, he hung up the phone without saying anything. This was the very first call to the police by the Zodiac Killer. About a month later, on August 1, 1969, the Zodiac Killer wrote letters to 3 separate newspapers. In the letter, he admitted responsibility for the murders that occurred in Lake Harmon and the girl who died in Blue Rock Springs Park on Independence Day. To prove his point, he provided details that were known only to the police, such as which bullet was fired, how many bullets were fired, and what kind of clothes the victim was wearing. Along with the letter, the Zodiac Killer also sent an encoded message and demanded that the cipher be printed in the newspaper the next day. Otherwise, he would commit more murderous acts. This encoded cipher was sent to intelligence agencies for decoding, but at that time, this cipher could not be cracked. The next day, after the cipher was published in the newspaper, a couple from San Francisco cracked it the same day. It was written in it,
"I like killing because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all to kill."
In the cipher, he also wrote that he believes in an afterlife. All the people he is killing will become his slaves in the next life. After writing letters to the newspaper, there was silence for 2 months. But the Zodiac Killer appeared once again with a new case. On September 27, 1969, a college couple was present on the banks of Lake Berryessa for a picnic, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. He noticed that a man was coming close to them. He was wearing a black hoodie with the zodiac symbol on it. As he got closer, the Zodiac took out his gun and asked the couple for money and the keys to the car. Brian had 75 cents on him at the time, which he gave along with the keys. So much so that he returned the keys to the car to Brian and forced him, at gunpoint, to handcuff himself with a rope. Then he took out his knife. Both had been stabbed several times. Thinking that both of them had been killed, the Zodiac Killer went back to the car and wrote a message on the couple's car before escaping. The message contained the name of the place, date, time, and name of the weapon. A nearby fisherman found the couple in an injured position. At that time, they were still breathing. They were taken to the hospital, but Cecilia succumbed to her injuries. However, the brain survived. Who informed the police about the incident in detail? Like his previous murder, the Zodiac Killer called the police at 7:40 and provided all the details of the murder. Here, the police found an important pattern from the Zodiac's actions. First, he only targeted young couples. Second, his attacks occurred on weekends or close to holidays. Third, his attacks happened either in the dark of night or at dusk. Fourth, whoever he killed, he would proudly admit it as if challenging the authorities. Fifth, most of the murders took place at dating spots. Sixth, most of the murders were committed in cars. Seventh, most of the murders occurred near the lake. These 7 patterns show that perhaps the Zodiac is disappointed in love or he has a special hatred for girls. Because in the previous 2 attacks, the boys survived. Although the police were completely unaware that Zodiac's next target was going to be the person who broke this pattern. Just 2 weeks later from the previous murder on October 11, 1969, Zodiac stopped a cab driver named Paul Stein at 9:30 p.m. and told him to go to Maple Street in the Presidio Heights. When the driver reached his destination, at first, Zodiac waited for the car to stop and then shot Paul Stein at point-blank range. After that, Zodiac got out and sat in the front passenger seat, cut a piece of Paul's shirt, and took it with him. During this murder, 2 children were watching the entire scene from the 2nd floor of a nearby building. He immediately informed the police, but what happened was that when he was describing the suspect, he said that his skin color was black. In the same area, a police car was out on patrol and on the way, they collided with Zodiac. That night, a police car was out on patrol and they immediately headed towards Maple Street. On the way, they encountered Zodiac, who was walking in the light fog. Because the police were looking for a black man, their suspicion did not fall on Zodiac, as he wasn't black. However, the police stopped and asked Zodiac if he had seen anything strange. Zodiac then told them that a man was passing by on the next street waving a gun. So, the police hurriedly went in that direction. Although if the police officers had gotten out of the car and looked, they would have seen blood stains on his body. Zodiac had once again managed to escape from police custody, but the police found fingerprints on Paul Stein's car. After a few days, Zodiac wrote letters to the newspapers again and told the whole story of Paul Stein's murder, sending a piece of Paul Stein's shirt as proof. This time, he threatened to attack a school bus. This news spread fear throughout the area. The police began chasing all school buses for several weeks, but nothing like that happened. With the help of the children who had seen Zodiac, a new fresh sketch was made and the sketch was sent to all the taxi drivers. But this time, Zodiac entered the field with a new identity. After the murder of a taxi driver, exactly 10 days later, on October 22, 1969, the Zodiac made a call to the Oakland Police Department and wanted to speak to Melvin Belli, who was a renowned lawyer at the time. This was a Channel 7 show that started early that day. The first time the Zodiac called, he disconnected the call immediately, but the next time he called again, the call lasted a long time. During the show, he identified himself as Sam. Throughout the show, he called 35 times, but only 12 of those calls made it on air. During the TV show, news anchors asked some questions, but Sam kept giving evasive answers. Later, it was revealed that this phone call was not from the Zodiac, as people who had heard the Zodiac's voice later stated that this voice did not belong to him. Investigation revealed that this call was made by a mental patient from Napa State Hospital. A few weeks after the TV show, news reporters received 2 more letters from the Zodiac. Both of these letters contained an encoded cipher that he wanted published again. The first cipher was cracked in a single day, but the second one was much more difficult and could not be decoded for the next 50 years. A few years ago, on December 5, 2020, 3 code breakers decoded this cipher with the help of computer software. In this cipher, the Zodiac did not reveal anything about himself, nor did he provide any important clues. However, it definitely indicated that I was not the Zodiac who called into the TV show. In the letters he had written with a cipher, the police finally found a clue. This time, he was threatening the police, stating that he had made a bomb that was kept in the basement. This was the only useful information in the many pages he had written. If he was really telling the truth, then that means he doesn't live in an apartment but in a house that might have a basement, and at that time, basements were not common in the play area, which suggested that the Zodiac does not live in the play area. Perhaps the Zodiac made a mistake by mentioning the basement of his house. On March 22, 1970, the Zodiac attempted to kidnap a girl named Kathleen Johns on Highway 132, but fortunately, she managed to escape. She went to the police station, and when the police showed the sketch of the Zodiac to her, she clearly recognized it. For the next 4 years, the Zodiac continued sending many letters and ciphers. In some, he would detail the murders, and in others, he would write reviews of movies. He also provided the location of the bomb in a letter, but the police neither found any bomb at that location nor did any explosion ever occur. His last letter was received on January 30, 1974, in which he had written the score of his murders as follows: Me 37 SSPD 0. This means I committed 37 murders while the San Francisco Police Department has a score of 0. However, the police stated that the Zodiac is reporting more murders because the number of murders committed using his method is only 5. Police and many other law enforcement agencies, like the CIA, conducted extensive research on the Zodiac's behavior and methods of murder. After thorough investigation, it was concluded that the Zodiac is not an ordinary human being but possesses military-grade knowledge. The signs found at the crime scene are said to be wing walker shoes, which are typically available in any military store. Additionally, he may have gained experience in ciphers and cryptology while in the military. While the Zodiac was spreading terror across America and gaining significant attention, many individuals also made false claims of being the Zodiac to garner attention, making it more challenging for the police to search for the real Zodiac. Initially, the police's suspicion fell on a man named Arthur Lee Allen. A lot of evidence was against Arthur because he had a military background, and secondly, he was wearing a watch on which Zodiac was inscribed, and the Zodiac logo was also present. Later, neither Arthur's handwriting nor his fingerprints matched those of the Zodiac. He died in 1992 after being in police custody for several years. The police's second suspect was a man named Richard Gaikowski because his face resembled the Zodiac. However, his handwriting and fingerprints did not match. Police arrested between 50 to 100 people based on suspicion, but none of their profiles matched the Zodiac perfectly. Of course, this case gained more popularity than expected, but the story of the Zodiac Killer's identity remains a mystery in the world of crime to this day. Who was the Zodiac? Why did he commit so many murders? And what did he mean by leaving the story life after death?